Our journey begins in 1898, deep within the Grand Canyon. Miners, tirelessly drilling for silver and copper, broke through a subterranean rock wall, revealing a hidden chamber. What they found within challenged every understanding of human history. Embalmed human skeletons, not of ordinary men, but of giants, towering an astonishing 9 feet in length, their presence echoing a forgotten past. Local Arizona newspapers quickly seized upon the extraordinary discovery. Their reports, based on physician-verified measurements, detailed the immense scale of these remains, documenting massive skull and femur dimensions that defied conventional science. This was not a rumor. It was a scientifically confirmed account, etched into the public record before any institutional intervention. The discovery wasn't just about size. These giant skeletons were found remarkably preserved in dry desert alcoves, surrounded by an array of artifacts. Forged copper plates, meticulously crafted mica ornaments, and sophisticated stone tools lay beside them, suggesting a culture far more advanced than accepted narratives of the time allowed. This was a complex burial site, not a simple anomaly. Further examination of the subterranean chamber revealed even more astounding details. Field crews meticulously recorded artificial masonry and intricately carved stone niches, indicating a sophisticated, pre-existing structure. This chamber was not a natural formation, but a deliberately constructed interment site, predating any modern mining activity and hinting at a highly organized ancient civilization. Yet the public's access to this transformative discovery was short-lived. Federal authorities and representatives from the burgeoning Smithsonian Institution swiftly moved in, restricting entry to the mine shafts. Their arrival marked a turning point, transforming a local wonder into an object of national control, shrouded in an immediate blanket of institutional secrecy. Within weeks of their arrival, the physical evidence began to vanish. The massive artifacts and the colossal skeletal remains were carefully packed into crates, marked for shipment to Washington, D.C. From that moment, they disappeared from public catalogs and scientific scrutiny, effectively erased from the documented history that had brought them to light. A systematic vanishing act had begun. What followed was a swift and decisive effort to seal off the truth. The very entrances to these revealing mine shafts were closed, some later sealed with concrete, others declared federal hazards. This act wasn't just about controlling access. It cemented a pattern of institutional suppression that would soon manifest across other remarkable discoveries of America's past, setting a chilling precedent. The Grand Canyon discovery, initially a beacon of extraordinary history, quickly became a microcosm of a larger, unsettling trend. The swift action of the Smithsonian, the disappearance of evidence, and the sealing of the sites established a disturbing narrative, a pattern of institutional control over information that would shape the understanding of ancient America for generations to come. Their reports, based on physician-verified measurements, detailed the immense scale of these remains, documenting massive skull and femur dimensions. These colossal figures lay amidst remarkable artifacts, finely crafted copper armor plates, intricate mica ornaments, and sophisticated stone tools, all hinting at a civilization far more advanced and a history far more complex than mainstream narratives allowed. The very architecture of the subterranean chamber, with its artificial masonry and carved stone niches, spoke of intentions and origins that predated any modern understanding of the region's past. Yet, this remarkable insight was fleeting. As news of the Grand Canyon giants spread, so too did the swift hand of authority. Federal agents and representatives from the burgeoning Smithsonian Institution descended upon the site with unusual speed. Their mission appeared clear: to restrict public access, to control the narrative, and ultimately to claim sovereignty over these extraordinary finds. Within weeks, the mine entrances that had revealed so much were sealed, not just metaphorically, but concretely, effectively erasing the physical gateway to this forgotten history. The artifacts and the skeletal remains were crated and shipped east. They vanished from public view, from official catalogs, and from the collective memory that the press had briefly ignited. This patterned discovery, documentation, and then disappearance would soon prove to be not an isolated incident, but a systemic response playing out across the vast American landscape. The Grand Canyon discovery, while dramatic, was merely one thread in a much larger tapestry of suppressed history. It was a prelude to a far more widespread phenomenon, one that challenged the very foundations of accepted archaeological dogma. Our investigation now turns to a different corner of the American heartland, far from the desert majesty of the Grand Canyon. In the very same year, 1898, as the Arizona mining discovery was being suppressed, excavators near Ohio's Scioto River Valley made their own astounding finds. Within the ancient earthen mounds, remnants of a complex and mysterious pre-Columbian civilization, a staggering 9-foot skeleton was unearthed. It lay entombed within a carefully constructed log tomb, a testament to its significance. Just like in Arizona, local county newspapers, including the prominent Ohio State Journal, were quick to report on the extraordinary find. They published detailed accounts, backed by certified physician reports, confirming the unbelievable dimensions of this ancient human frame. The medical professionals of the era, relying on observable evidence, verified the monumental size, leaving no room for doubt in the public record. This wasn't a rumor or a tall tale. It was documented fact, printed for all to see in the daily news. Yet the Ohio discovery was far from an anomaly. Between 1850 and 1910, the sheer volume of similar reports from across various American states is truly staggering. Hundreds of local American newspapers, from the plains of Iowa to the forests of Wisconsin and the hills of Tennessee, documented the unearthing of human skeletons ranging from 8 to 10 feet in height. These weren't isolated incidents. They were a pervasive, national phenomenon. The records speak for themselves, painting a picture that radically diverges from our modern understanding. These colossal remains weren't found exclusively by professional archaeologists. Often, they were uncovered by ordinary citizens during their daily lives, well diggers striking bone while searching for water, farmers plowing their fields, or municipal workers laying foundations for new buildings. These unexpected discoveries routinely occurred within or beneath pre-Columbian earthworks, linking the giant remains directly to ancient civilizations across the continent. Such widespread, common occurrences strongly suggest a population of considerable stature, a fact now conspicuously absent from our history books. This explosion of giant skeleton reports coincided with a pivotal moment in American institutional history. Major John Wesley Powell, a towering figure in exploration and science, wisely established the Bureau of Ethnology at the Smithsonian Institution in 1879. His vision was to centralize the study and oversight of ancient American sites, creating an organized approach to understanding the continent's past. However, this centralization also brought with it the power to curate, and ultimately to control the historical narrative. By 1894, Cyrus Thomas, an influential figure within the Bureau, published a foundational report that would profoundly shape American archaeology for decades. This exhaustive publication, while ostensibly summarizing years of research, also formulated official theories about the origins and characteristics of ancient American cultures. Crucially, it sidelined, dismissed, or reinterpreted any skeletal data that deviated from the established norms, particularly out-of-size human remains. The official narrative was being codified, and anything that didn't fit was quietly but firmly pushed aside. What became of the countless 9-foot skeletons reported in newspapers and documented by physicians? Deposited specimens shipped to the National Museum were systematically categorized as mere anatomical anomalies, unusual but not significant, or, more chillingly, simply lost from accession manifests. Independent researchers, painstakingly tracking 19th-century receipt logs and museum archives, have uncovered a troubling pattern. Entries describing giant skeletons frequently disappeared from public museum displays, never to be seen or acknowledged again. The evidence literally vanished into thin air. This suppression wasn't accidental. It was born from a rigid intellectual climate. 19th-century scientific institutions enforced strict ideological models that simply rejected the notion of complex or giant pre-Columbian populations in North America. These models often served broader societal narratives, making any evidence contradicting them intellectually inconvenient, if not outright threatening. Therefore, field directors who dared to report out-of-size bones often faced severe repercussions, from the loss of crucial institutional funding to career-ending academic discredit. The Grand Canyon mine entrances, once vibrant with the promise of copper and silver, and briefly the site of an epic-making discovery, were quietly sealed. Some were filled with concrete, others declared federal hazards, effectively preventing any private excavation or public re-examination. The physical evidence recovered from these mines, as well as from countless mound sites, was retroactively classified, omitted from official geological surveys, or simply reinterpreted to fit the accepted narrative. The past was not merely being managed, it was being meticulously rewritten. This systematic removal of giant skeletal evidence from public consciousness created an artificial gap, a deliberate void between the numerous 19th-century field accounts and the sanitized 20th-century museum exhibits. The public history that emerged promoted the myth of an empty wilderness, a sparsely populated continent awaiting European settlement, completely ignoring the documented existence of giant human remains. The official story became one of absence, covering up a far more complex and compelling ancient American narrative. Today, modern technology offers a new lens through which to examine these historical mysteries. Ground-penetrating radar and archival surveys confirm the exact locations of these 19th-century mine shafts and mound digs, showing that these sites were indeed real. The newspaper archives from the late 1800s, preserved in digital databases and microfiche, continue to speak volumes, preserving hundreds of eyewitness testimonies and verified measurements. These are not whispers of folklore. They are verifiable historical records, laid bare for contemporary scrutiny. The widespread reports of giant skeletons, initially embraced by local media, soon encountered a formidable obstacle: the burgeoning institutional authority over American antiquity. As federal agents from the Smithsonian Institution descended upon the Grand Canyon, a new narrative began to take shape. The initial enthusiasm surrounding these monumental finds was rapidly overshadowed by a calculated and coordinated effort to control information, ushering in an era of systematic oversight that would redefine the historical landscape for generations to come. Major John Wesley Powell, a towering figure of 19th-century American exploration, founded the Bureau of Ethnology at the Smithsonian in 1879. His vision was to centralize the study of ancient American sites and indigenous cultures. While ostensibly promoting scientific inquiry, this centralization inadvertently created a powerful gatekeeper. It established a framework through which all archaeological discoveries, including the perplexing giant skeletons, would be filtered, interpreted, or, as history would reveal, sometimes disappear entirely from public view under the guise of academic rigor. Cyrus Thomas, a prominent figure within Powell's Bureau, published his monumental 1894 report on the mound explorations of the Bureau of Ethnology. This document became the official canon for understanding pre-Columbian America. It meticulously detailed the mound builders, attributing their creations to direct ancestors of modern Native American tribes. While a significant anthropological achievement, this report's rigid conclusions left little room for anomalies, particularly the widely reported discoveries of colossal human remains that challenged prevailing anthropological models, effectively sidelining out-of-size skeletal data. This official theory served as a powerful ideological lens. Within this rigid framework, evidence that conflicted with the established narrative was either reinterpreted, dismissed, or simply deemed an anatomical anomaly. The notion of a pre-Columbian giant race, or even unusually tall individuals, became incompatible with the carefully constructed historical timeline. The pressure was immense to fit all archaeological findings into the approved scientific paradigm, stifling any inquiry that ventured beyond the prescribed boundaries. This intellectual conformity became a hallmark of the era's institutional approach. The disappearance of the Grand Canyon giants and numerous other similar finds wasn't necessarily part of a malicious conspiracy. Instead, it was often a result of systematic reclassification. Skeletal specimens, once described in local papers as 9-foot giants, were quietly recatalogued. They became anatomical anomalies, unusual variations, or were simply recorded with reduced dimensions that fit within accepted human variability. This recontextualization was a subtle but effective way of making inconvenient truths conform to established scientific consensus. Independent researchers, meticulously poring over dusty 19th century receipt logs and accession manifests, uncovered a troubling pattern. Entries detailing the arrival of giant skeletons or unusually large human remains at the National Museum often led to dead ends. These intriguing records abruptly vanished from public catalogs, leaving no trace in later museum displays or official inventories. It was as if the specimens themselves, once documented and received, had been swallowed whole by the institutional archives, their very existence erased from the public record of artifacts. This pattern wasn't confined to a few isolated cases. It was a pervasive characteristic of scientific institutions in the late 19th century. There was a strong drive to establish a coherent, linear narrative of human development in North America. Discoveries that presented complexities, such as evidence of advanced or unusually large pre-Columbian populations, were viewed with skepticism. These out-of-place artifacts challenged the prevailing dogma, making them targets for reinterpretation or removal rather than catalysts for new scientific inquiry and understanding. The pressure on field directors and archaeologists was immense. Reporting findings that deviated too significantly from the Bureau of Ethnology's established models could have dire consequences. Academic careers were fragile. Institutional funding was precious. Those who dared to champion the existence of giant bones or other out-of-syllabus discoveries risked not only loss of funding for their projects, but also academic discredit. They face being marginalized, their work dismissed, their professional reputations tarnished, illustrating the chilling power of ideological control within scientific circles. The physical suppression of evidence was as methodical as the academic reclassification. In the Grand Canyon, the entrances to the mines where the giant skeletons were found were quietly sealed. Whether with concrete or through official declarations, these shafts became inaccessible. They were deemed federal hazards, unsafe for public access, or simply lost to memory, preventing any private exploration or verification of the initial newspaper accounts. This act effectively buried the evidence, placing it beyond the reach of curious citizens and independent researchers alike. The artifacts and skeletal remains recovered from these sites, once hailed as monumental discoveries, were retroactively classified. They were either omitted entirely from official geological and archaeological surveys or described in vague, non-committal terms. This allowed institutions to maintain a veneer of scientific rigor while quietly removing the problematic evidence from the official story. The public, without access to primary field reports or the physical evidence, had no way to challenge the revised narratives presented by the authoritative bodies of the era. This systematic removal of conflicting evidence created an artificial vacuum in the historical timeline of pre-Columbian America. Decades later, public history textbooks and museum exhibits would present a clean, unblemished narrative, largely devoid of any mention of unusually tall or giant human remains. The rich, complex accounts documented by 19th-century physicians and local newspapers were conveniently forgotten, replaced by a sanitized version of the past that perpetuated the myth of an empty wilderness awaiting European settlement, rather than a vibrant land with a deeper history. The contrast between the vivid, detailed accounts of 19th-century field reports and the subsequent silence from official institutions is stark. While the Bureau of Ethnology was busy crafting its authorized narrative, local newspapers across multiple states continued to document, with verified physician reports, extraordinary finds. This created a dual reality, one public, filled with reports of giants, and another institutional, where such findings simply did not exist. The discrepancy was, and remains, profound. Today, modern technology offers a new lens through which to examine these historical gaps. Ground-penetrating radar and sophisticated archival surveys can pinpoint the precise locations of 19th-century mine shafts and mound digs. These technologies could potentially confirm the physical remnants of these sites, even those officially declared lost. The Earth, often the best keeper of secrets, might still hold the answers beneath its surface, waiting for a new generation of investigators willing to look beyond official narratives and revisit forgotten sites. Remarkably, despite the strenuous efforts to erase them, thousands of newspaper archives from the late 1800s still preserve a treasure trove of hundreds of eyewitness testimonies. These include verified measurements and detailed descriptions of the giant skeletons, complete with physician reports. They are a powerful testament to what laymen and local professionals encountered. These preserved documents serve as a vital counter-narrative, offering undeniable proof of what was discovered before institutional oversight silenced the conversation and reshaped public memory. The physical footprints of the Grand Canyon mines, along with countless Ohio mounds and other discovery sites, still endure. Many of these locations are now under federal land management, effectively safeguarding them, but also potentially preventing independent inquiry without challenging bureaucratic hurdles. While their entrances may be sealed and their contents removed, the very existence of these sites, as documented in contemporary records, leaves no doubt about what 19th-century miners and excavators truly uncovered. The land remembers, even if official history forgets. Independent researchers today dedicate themselves to cross-referencing these 19th-century newspaper archives with original Smithsonian accession logs. They aim to expose the discrepancies, the strategic omissions, and the outright mislabeling that occurred. The meticulous work of comparing field collection reports with public catalog inventories reveals a pattern spanning 4 decades, a concerted and systematic suppression of evidence. This ongoing historical detective work is slowly but surely piecing together the true story, challenging decades of institutional silence and recontextualization. The physical existence of 9-foot skeletons in ancient mines and mounds, as widely reported in their time, forces a complete reassessment of North American antiquity. It compels us to question the established narratives and consider the possibility of a far more complex and diverse pre-Columbian past than currently acknowledged. The glaring contrast between the primary field reports of 1898 and the complete institutional silence and denial that followed demands an explanation, leaving a profound void in our understanding of history and the institutions that shape it. Ultimately, the Grand Canyon mine shafts remain sealed, silent witnesses to a controversial past. Yet, the 1898 newspaper reports, vibrant and undeniable, stand recorded in historical archives, awaiting re-examination. The question is no longer whether 9-foot giant skeletons were indeed discovered in 1898. That fact is historically documented. The more profound and disturbing question that echoes through time is why this extraordinary physical proof was hidden away, why institutional mechanisms were deployed to erase a widely reported chapter of American history. The echoes of that 1898 Grand Canyon discovery still resonate today, long after the mine entrances were quietly sealed and concrete poured. These physical barriers became a stark symbol of what was lost, an imposing wall not just against access, but against an inconvenient truth. The very existence of these sealed shafts forces us to confront the concerted effort to bury this chapter of history deep within the earth itself. But the Grand Canyon was not an isolated incident. The simultaneous discoveries in Ohio, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Tennessee paint a much larger, coordinated picture. These ancient mounds, some still visible today, stand as silent sentinels to a past intentionally obscured. Their enduring presence, despite decades of academic denial, reminds us that real history often lies beneath the surface, waiting to be rediscovered by those willing to look. The contrast between the enduring physical evidence, the sealed mines, the persistent mounds, and the systematic erasure from public memory is profound. Generations grew up with a narrative of an empty North American wilderness, a clean slate awaiting European settlement. This official story conveniently ignored the widespread testimonies and physical proof of a complex pre-Columbian past, a past populated by extraordinary individuals that defied neat categorization. But modern techniques are finally allowing us to peer through the veil of suppression. Ground-penetrating radar, a non-invasive technology, can now reveal the exact subterranean layouts of these 19th-century mine shafts and mound excavations. It's like an archaeological X-ray, illuminating the hidden structures and confirming the precise locations reported over a century ago, offering undeniable proof of where these discoveries were made. Equally vital are the countless newspaper archives that survive the passage of time. These dusty, brittle pages are not mere anecdotes. They are primary source documents, preserving hundreds of eyewitness testimonies. They contain physician-verified measurements and detailed accounts, reported vigorously by local journalists across America. These unsung chroniclers of history refuse to let these extraordinary discoveries fade into oblivion, providing an invaluable record. These combined approaches, ground-penetrating radar and exhaustive archival deep dives, reconstruct the forgotten timeline with startling clarity. They bridge the chasm between the 19th century accounts and our contemporary understanding, allowing us to see what was truly discovered before the institutional filters were applied. This meticulous work brings precision to historical claims that were once dismissed as fanciful or anecdotal, providing robust evidence. The significance extends beyond mere historical correction. It challenges the very institutions that shaped our collective American narrative. The Bureau of Ethnology, the Smithsonian Institution, these powerful entities, entrusted with preserving our past, instead actively suppressed a substantial part of it. The systematic reclassification and disappearance of giant skeletal evidence constitute a profound betrayal of public trust and academic integrity. The knowledge that such remarkable discoveries were made, widely reported, and then systematically scrubbed from public record leaves us with a profound sense of historical injustice. The story of what was found in the Grand Canyon and the Ohio mounds is not just about giant skeletons. It's about the power to control narrative, to erase what doesn't fit, and to shape our understanding of who we are and where we came from. It's a cautionary tale. But this reevaluation is also an intellectual triumph. It demonstrates that determined researchers, armed with digital tools and an unwavering commitment to truth, can unearth even the most deeply buried secrets. It's a testament to the fact that physical evidence and primary documentation, once dismissed, can resurface to challenge official dogma and recalibrate our understanding of the past. The human drive for discovery persists. The final pieces of this puzzle, the physical footprints of the Grand Canyon mines and Ohio mounds, endure to this day. Many now fall under federal land management, their true significance often understated or overlooked in official reports. But for those who know what to look for, these sites are not just geological features. They are historical scars, markers of a monumental discovery and its subsequent deliberate suppression. They bear witness. The primary documentation, gathered from disparate sources and meticulously cross-referenced, leaves no room for doubt about what 19th century miners and excavators truly uncovered. The hundreds of newspaper reports, the physician reports, the eyewitness accounts, they all point to an undeniable reality. It is a reality that for too long has been relegated to the fringes, dismissed as myth, or actively hidden from public view by powerful institutions. So, as we return to the sealed mine shafts of the Grand Canyon, they stand not as symbols of oblivion, but as monuments to a renewed investigation. The question is no longer whether 9-foot giant skeletons were found in 1898. The extensive documentation confirms that beyond a shadow of a doubt. The pressing question now, for us and for future generations, is why the physical proof of these extraordinary beings was so deliberately and systematically hidden away. The implications of this suppressed history are far-reaching. If our understanding of ancient North America is built upon a foundation of omission and intentional misdirection, what else have we been prevented from knowing? This discovery forces us to challenge every accepted narrative, to critically examine the sources of our knowledge, and to demand transparency from the institutions that curate our shared past. The true story awaits its full telling. The Grand Canyon giants, once buried and forgotten, are now emerging from the shadows of history. Their story, painstakingly reconstructed through modern research and rediscovered archives, serves as a powerful reminder. Truth, no matter how inconvenient, has a way of refusing to stay buried forever. We must continue to question, to investigate, and to seek the true, unvarnished history of our world, for the past holds keys to our future.